Success farming is all about precision and efficiency, ensuring every seed, every drop of water, every nutrient and treatment counts. Terraplex Ag is helping farmers all over Iowa and the Midwest do just that. With precision ag-grown technology and support from Terraplex, you'll boost your productivity and make timely and informed decisions, all while reducing your costs and increasing your profit. It's time to revolutionize your farming. Harvest the benefits with Terraplex Ag. Visit TerraplexAg.com.
Welcome to Williams and Blum. It is Wednesday, the 15th of May. My name is Chris Williams. I'm joined, as always, by Brent Blum. We are remote today, yet we still come to you from the Wild Rose Casino Studios and are presented by our friends at Mechdyne, the Mechdyne Corporation. I'd like you to give them a shout out at Mechdyne.com, Mechdyne.com. Are you miserable in your job? Because they've got job openings and they love hiring Iowa Staters. And I always tell you, at some point, maybe you guys are going to cancel me or kick me out of this whole deal. And I'm going to need a job. And the first place I'm going to look is Mechdyne, because they took a bunch of their employees to like the tropics a couple weeks ago. They were all just like hanging out. Like it's an incredible company. Mechdyne.com, Mechdyne.com. How are you today, Bloom?
Well, speaking of jobs, I think in a couple of years I might not have one based on the new report. So I might be calling Clover up. Mechdyne. Chris, what do you got? What do you got? No, it's interesting times for sure. I mean, quiet on the surface, but oh my gosh, behind the scenes, there's a bunch going on these next 10 days in college athletics. This has kind of been the buildup for the last 5 years. I think it's all going to now. It's not as flashy as realignment, but the next 10 days are going to be just a massive sea change for college athletics. You know, maybe not right away, but this whole thing is coming to a head here.
Yeah, it may not be as sexy, but it's definitely probably just as substantial, probably more.
Yeah,
I would say we will lead with that. The Ross Dellinger report that came out yesterday. And listen, I'm not going to get into the minutia here too much, Brent, because we really have talked about all this stuff. Like nothing in this report was like earth shattering to me. Right. And that I retweeted it last night. If you guys want to go and read the whole thing, we're really lucky to have him in college athletics right now, because he's digging up stuff that nobody else is. He works for Yahoo. I want to make sure and give him credit.
Totally.
You know, basically it goes down how much the NCAA and these Power 5 schools would owe in back damages if they would lose in court versus, you know, like a settlement. Yep. And they're going to settle. From what I understand, there's absolutely no way they let this thing get to court, because they know they will lose and they know it's going to be a lot worse. The numbers that Ross comes up with are pretty staggering. The first thing I thought of was, the power leagues are going to have to take most of the blow here, but man, like I wouldn't want to be like Northern Iowa right now. Like with what they get from the NCAA tournament, it's going to be slashed in half. Like these smaller schools are going to just eat this a lot more than your SEC. Yeah. And Iowa State is considered one of the smaller ones in this, but still, you have a booster base, you have tickets, you have all that stuff that, man, like this is really, I'd hate to be in Conference USA right now with what's coming down the pike here. There's only so much money, and right or wrong, and everybody's entitled to their opinions. They've had, for the most part, free labor for 100 years or however long we've been doing this. And it worked back then. It worked.
Sure.
It was a great deal. I would argue that this setup is still a great deal for the majority of student athletes.
It is.
But the problem is the ones who it's not a great deal for have agents, and there's now all these people fighting for them, and it's in court, and we're watching it on C-SPAN.
It got too big too fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
we're at the breaking point here. Yeah. So I think, so for those who are like, well, what case are you talking about? What is getting settled? There's three of them. And this is where it gets kind of goofy. There's House versus the NCAA. There's Hubbard. And I believe the third one is Carter. So just to, the Michael Scott explained to me like I'm 5 because I've spent way too much time
Well,
looking into all this
that
stuff.
works with your co-host because that's me. Explain it
Okay,
to me like I'm 5.
Explain to it like you're talking to Chris Williams.
Yes,
No.
there you go.
No, so essentially, if the NCAA were to lose, they would owe $20 billion, $20 billion, and they'd have to pay it immediately. Well,
so they would go bankrupt.
They don't have $20 billion to pay.
That's this report. Like
immediately.
them and like the Big 12, the Big 10, they're all going bankrupt.
They would all go bankrupt because they can't afford it. So the settlement is it reduces the payout to $2.7 billion, but payable over 10 years, which when you split that up between the NCAA, which is making a good chunk of money from the NCAA tournament, and then you also, the Power 4 schools are all going to have to take a hit in this. It's not going to be huge, but it's going to be a hit. And you split that up. It's not horrible. But the second part of that settlement, it's not just back pay. It is establishing a future set of guidelines. So this is no longer basically legislated in the future. And those future guidelines set a revenue sharing amount between a school and the athletes. And keep in mind, this is you can opt into this. You do not have to do this. You do not have to do this. But it sets it at essentially 20% of the average of Power 4 revenue, which will amount to, again, like $20 million is going to be the cap.
Mm-hmm.
So there will be a cap on what schools can pay from its own athletic department. So that is kind of the baseline. And schools can opt in. Most are going to do this. The question now, C-Dub, is for each individual school, how much of that do you want to participate in? You don't have to do all 20 million. You don't have to pay your athletes all 20 million. Well, those monsters, absolutely, they're gonna be there.
They'll max out.
So let's, again, it was Cyclone Fanatic. If you're Iowa State, this is a huge topic of discussion now. A couple of things. You're gonna owe a couple $1 million from the back settlement. Okay. You are now losing roughly $8 to $9 million per year over the next several years by taking on the corner 4 schools, because those 4 schools are getting the same, and ESPN and Fox did not up their pay. But you had to do that in order to survive. I get it. You're now throwing in up to $20 million in potential new budget items that you didn't have to budget for. You were not planning on this. So therein lies, $30+ million that you're going to have to figure out overnight. And that you can't do that. That is impossible. Iowa State's budget is $105 to $115 million. You can't just eliminate $35 million overnight, or else there's going to be, as somebody told me, there's going to be a lot of dead bodies up in Ames. For people are going to lose their jobs.
I mean, I would guess if you cut all these sports, that you're going to have a situation like you had at Iowa.
Right. You can't just start cutting sports. So
and there's currently a requirement. You have to have X amount of, I think it's 15 D1 sports to be a D1 athletic department.
Right.
I wonder if that's going to loosen up. It almost has to.
It almost has to. And the other thing that'll loosen up, C-Dub, is I think scholarship limitations are going to go away. And I think you're going to leave it up to the individual conferences to establish.
This is the stupidest part of all. Did you listen to my interview with the Iowa Collective guy?
I did. It was well done. Yeah.
He had nice things to say about you. That was refreshing.
We're human beings.
Yeah. Let me run this by you.
Okay.
I'm going to write this out too. I'm going to write this column. Why do we still have 85 scholarships going forward for football? So let me run it by all these athletic departments are in the same spot with money, right? Even the super rich ones. Okay.
Yeah, they're still trying to find $25 million overnight.
Title IX still exists, right? So you're getting rid of some men's scholarships and you're evening it out. To me, this is a no-brainer. We can save the golf team. We can save. Now, here's the problem, though, Brent. I'm coming at this from I actually care about these sports. I know Jamie Pollard does Georgia's athletic? I don't know. You know what I mean? But to me, going forward in this transfer portal era, and we'll see what happens with that, they don't need 85 scholarships because the roster's turning over constantly anyways. The days of us putting together these scholarship charts and like they're pointless. It really, like, they don't need 85 scholarships. It's more of a year-to-year thing. Mike Leach said it 15 years ago because he's a freaking prophet and he's smarter than all these people. They should have just listened to him. But he said it from day one. Like, these guys need to be on 2-year contracts every year. Like, so, like, it gives them their freedom, yet it gives us some sort of planning, right? And that's half their career. And hopefully we can keep them for all 4 if we want them. And if not, we tell them, hey, you're not, go transfer down and play in the FCS. And it makes it so much better. Like, the Big 12 will be better off for this because the SEC and the Big 10 aren't going to stockpile 100 dudes on all their rosters because they can pay more, right? It's going to make every level of football stronger. It's great for women athletics. It's going to save men's golf teams and men's rowing. It's going to save opportunities for those student athletes. Why do we need 85 scholarships in football?
You don't, and that's why it's going to go away now. But the issue is you're still going to have those monsters who are going to actually keep hoarding scholarships because they can. So they'll just say, yeah, come on over here. Now, Iowa State might go the other way, and drop down to, let's say, 75. But good luck telling your football coach, hey, you get 10 less scholarships, right? Because then that's a competitive disadvantage to recruit good coaches. And I think so. The 2 thoughts for me on this is I think in the long term, this will be good for Iowa State. There needs to be a cap in place for money because Iowa State cannot win the money game. Just cannot. It's impossible with the resources Iowa State has compared to everybody else. So cap is good. But in the short term, you're going to have to really do some number crunching, and it's going to get hard. It's going to get hard over the next 12 to 18 months. So this settlement's going to happen. It's going to happen probably in the next couple of weeks. The couple remaining questions, C-Dub, is, number one, when does it kick in? I've heard next year, which would be really fast because you're trying to get
this upcoming year?
No, like fall of it'd be summer of 25.
Yeah. Okay.
Try and do any business and rearrange $35 million. That's hard. So my guess will be it won't start until the summer of 26, actually, which will give everybody some
keep
time
drinking the Ames Lager.
Yeah, I mean, therein lies where I'm going here. This is good that there is going to be a cap, but Iowa State is still going to be at a disadvantage because I don't see a world where Iowa State can find $20 million in its athletics budgets to pay the players right now. It's not there. It is simply not there. The whole wrestling facility, that is why. It's like they can't come up with just $20 million. So while, yes, collectives may go away in this world, although still to be determined if they're like an auxiliary piece or what does the contract look like with the player, with the school, we're going to sort all this stuff out. But what I would tell Cyclone fans is your support of the entire Iowa State operation is as important now as it ever has been. Because whether you're giving to NIL now in the short term, and please keep doing that because we still have to keep the current guys on the team and we have to pay them for the next year or more. But ultimately, Iowa State is going to need that same level of investment on the university side. Even if the pay for play shifts to Iowa State's not just coming in with a bunch more money that they don't have. Mm-hmm. So that shift in investment will move just over to the athletic department. And the other part of that is, so let's say we will has a surplus and the NCAA says, or whatever Congress says, the collectives have to go away. We're doing some scenario planning already of like, what do? We will most likely just move whatever excess money we have over to the university. So all that being said, this is not a time to stop investing in NIL or Iowa State. It is because we're trying to figure out from a high level C-Dub. I'll just be transparent here. Our NIL budget for the next year is going to be around $5 to $6 million, which we're very proud of and very grateful for Cyclone Nation. Nowhere in our wildest dreams do we think we could get even this far. Mm-hmm. So there's
God. I remember when we were trying to get one.
Well, it was a struggle,
right?
It was a struggle. Yeah, the first year,
first million's always the hardest, is what they say. Hopefully, I find out sometime.
First year we did 450,000, so up to $5 million is good. But that money it's not like you're going to say, okay, we don't need that anymore. We're going to continue to need that. It's just going to shift over to the athletic department because somebody still has to pay the players if you want to be competitive. So this is where it's going to get interesting of how athletic departments choose to be strategic here of either cutting costs, or a lot of them are going to have to do these monster fundraising campaigns because they're going to be on the hook now.
Man,
So there's going to be some headaches in the short term. I think it's a fascinating discussion of, if you're an athletic department, of how do you allocate the money you do have, because the coaches aren't going to say, I don't think they're not going to say, hey, we'll go down to $1 million each, or will you cut support staff? You can't do that. But then again, it's going to get to a point, if I'm a player and this school is offering me $200,000 and that school is only offering me 50.
So
what
that
do you
goes
do?
to this part of the conversation, and I really want to get your opinions on this. And I would encourage all Iowa State fans to go listen to this. So on Iowa Everywhere yesterday on my CW pod, I interviewed Blum for the Hawks. Okay, and I really I'd never talked to Brad. I've really you're the only collective guy I've ever really spoken to. And I wanted to get his opinion on a lot of the same topics that Brent and I talk about, and just see how it in his perspective was really interesting. I came away a little bit, and I don't think Brad would probably agree with this, but we openly talked about this. So I guess what it did, Brent, was it hammered home what I've been saying for 2 years, that I think in this new world, Iowa State's going to be in the spot where it should be, where you're not constantly trying to compete with Texas, because that's just not.
Yes.
I know Iowa State's had athletic success against them, but in this new world where there's salary caps and stuff, Iowa State's not on the same level financially. It's just not. We can all be reality. Well, Brad's point is because we look at Iowa and you're like, oh, they're so lucky they're in the Big Ten. They have all this money. Well, it's all relative. And he's saying now we have to compete with Michigan, Ohio State, Florida, or not Florida, Penn State, who had these 100,000 seat stadiums. They have way more population base. And so it's really everybody's got these same problems. Northern Iowa has the same problem, but it's at a different level.
Everyone's got problems here. Yeah.
Right. I guess that's my point. So I had one of our friends call me on Monday, and he was just like, oh my God, you and Bloomer are just killing me today. We're not trying to be doomsday. I think what we're trying to do is just explain where this is at. It's not doomsday. Just an Iowa State problem.
No.
Iowa's got this problem. And then, and this is why I also said for 2 years that I thought Texas would be better off in the SEC than Oklahoma. And I think we're seeing that now. Oklahoma's certainly not poor, but they're certainly not Texas when it comes to this. And right, am I making sense here?
You are. So yes, this is where, and this has got a little bit lost in our last conversation. At the end of the day, is Iowa competition? Yes. Who is more competition? The rest of the Big 12.
Correct. Kansas State.
Yeah, Iowa's not getting in the way of Iowa State making a college football playoff. The rest of the Big 12 is. So you need to be competitive with the rest of the Big 12. And I think Iowa State mostly is. And so the one thing where money really will hurt is that initial recruiting process. It's going to be hard to compete with the SEC and the Big Ten.
Get guys in the door knowing they're going to make half.
Correct. That's going to be
That'll
hard.
be hard.
It's going to be hard. The good news here, team, I'm an optimist. There are these contracts are going to be they're going to be actual contracts. It will greatly reduce movement in the portal. Once you sign, these could be 2-year contracts, C-Dub. They could be 3-year contracts. I'm talking about signing with the school themselves. And either it's going to be an NIL agreement or some sort of contract basis where you can't just get up and leave without penalty. There will be callbacks in these.
Yeah, and you're dealing with athletic or universities with real lawyers and stuff.
Not and again, we have attorneys that consult, but we're not a $1 billion operation like Iowa State.
You guys also don't have the resources to just go and fight somebody in court for a year.
We do not.
It wouldn't make sense for you or the player.
So this is going to be, again, long-term, this is great for Iowa State, in my opinion. Now, you're just going to have to really deal with it because once you get these guys on campus, it's going to be really, really hard for them to leave. And was Iowa State beating Alabama and Texas and those schools for many recruits anyway? No. And so from that standpoint, from an in-state, if you're a kid and Iowa is going to offer you $200,000 and Iowa State can only do 75, that's going to be a hard battle to climb. So Iowa State's going to have to, get creative in recruiting. However, once they're here and you are literally set up going to be a developmental program then. But the first question before we get to that point is how aggressive is each school going to be, including Iowa State, in reallocating its budget to help out the player compensation? Because if it's a cap, everyone can get to a certain point. I have a hard time thinking Iowa State's going to find its way to the cap. It's going to be tough. I just don't see it unless they have some significant increase in investment from something. And that's where my mindset is, well, I'm still fundraising for NIL, but ultimately I'm fundraising now.
For
Any
Iowa
excess
State.
we have is going to be for Iowa State. So we're trying to get creative in finding these new revenue opportunities just because, it's going to be, going down the same path.
And if that's the case, then the athletic department needs to start pushing We Will hard.
Well, or Cyclone Club. I mean,
whatever.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, Iowa State's going to need more money to compete. It's just
Correct.
This is where we're at now. The good news is once you get there, you're going to be pretty steady. And here's the other advantage Iowa State has. Ohio State has 28 sports, 30 sports. Good luck figuring out for them how they're going to split that up.
Yeah, and I've seen Gene Smith talk about that, and that's like one of his. They're going to have to cut 10 sports,
and that's why they are. And you again, the people with the gold, they're arguing for more gold. It's like, well, we got to take care of our field hockey team. We got to.
Good luck talking to an Ohio State fan about, hey, we're only going to pay the football program this much because we need to fund these 15 other. Like it's not like the rowing club, and nobody. It's not going to happen.
And nobody knows what Title IX's implication for this is yet. They're like, we'll figure that out later. So this is the first step.
Like, it needs to be a blanket across the board. We're cutting football scholarships from 85 to 70. Everybody needs it.
I know, but I don't think they can do that. I mean,
because of the legal?
Yeah.
Because then it's collusion. And you're limiting opportunities.
You're eliminating jobs then. So you can't. So scholarships are going to be at a
good catch.
They're going to be a per school basis. So Iowa State could do 65. Ohio State could do 100. That's where we're going here. And it's again, but you got to figure out, this is why there's going to be more and more business people in college athletics. You can't just keep spending and like, oh, we'll figure it out, because these are real world applications.
Is there any way? I had a call with a pretty influential business guy in Des Moines this morning, who and you've worked with through We Will, and this company is really willing to write a pretty significant check for an Iowa State student athlete, and an agent got involved, and it's completely soured him on the entire process. Here's my question: is there any way to eliminate that going forward and make it be more like it was when Brock Purdy and me designed a t-shirt and had it up in 24 hours and had him making a little bit of scratch, like that real is there any way we can limit agents in this new world?
Because here's the part of the contracts, and it's going to be, again, up to the school. And I don't know if these conferences will have agreements on what these contracts look like, but it could be where, as part of this contract, you sign with Iowa State and you give up all of your NIL rights to the university at that point. Then agents have nothing.
So then it wouldn't be a deal where, like, we used the example last week, because I think of all the players at all of Iowa State, Audie Crooks has the most valuable name, image, and likeness, in my opinion.
That's a fact.
Going forward, there's no one more valuable than her. So could it be a deal where because I'm not necessarily against representation, right? Like, for the longest time, Caitlin Clark's like mom was handling her marketing stuff, and before she got super big, and then
for the last year, it's been Audie's mom, and then I've been chipping in here and there, and She has obviously grown to a different level now.
Yeah, because I think, like, what's interesting about that is, like, they're still student athletes. They still go to college. They still have practice all the time. They're busy. Like, I don't think Audie should be on the phone, like, negotiating deals with Nike. Like, that's a bad use of everybody's time. And some executive in New York could take advantage of a young kid in Iowa who's never been in a spot like that. So, like, how do we do it where it's not these agents from LA trying to take advantage of our good local companies, right? Like, I'm
Yeah.
trying to maximize opportunity while being fair to everyone.
I don't know. I just think that's where maybe your premier athletes won't sign the contract with the school, and they'll just
Fascinating.
maintain their own rights at that point.
Will they still be able to play? Or will
Yeah,
they be required to sign
because
that
this
outright?
is again, these contracts aren't going to be to play still.
Because I would say this, like, and I'm very different than, but, like, one of the reasons why I like being an independent media guy is because I'm in control of it. When I was at
Yeah,
iHeartRadio, they'd always tell me, "Well, if you want to get a raise, we just got to go out and sell you for more endorsements." Well, nobody, they have to do it.
had
So,
to
like,
do it.
I could see a scenario where Audie Crooks is sitting there being like, "Hey, I'd like to be compensated for what I'm worth," but now she's reliant on, some rep in the marketing department to go out and actually do it,
Right.
where, but they're being told, "Hey, we need this money for the Cyclone Club," or right? Like, do you see,
Mhm.
like, where
Yeah,
this could
yeah,
become a problem?
this is why it's gonna be hard to just flip this switch on in a year because
Yeah.
there's so many questions like, "What? How? What? How?
Because if
When?"
I was advising Audie, I would say you need your own representation. You're never gonna get what you're worth
But
if
if
you
you're a
give it
freshman,
over.
but yeah, but she's coming in from Algona last. She's a great
Yeah,
hypothetical because
yeah,
she is the best of both ends here. And Iowa State offers you, all right, Audie, we're going to sign you to a 4-year contract. You're going to get $50,000 per year. That's a great deal. If you're coming from
yeah.
Algona, now on her end,
This
by the
is
time she's a senior, that is a bad deal for her.
a little bit of Ronald Acuna here, right? He
Yeah,
signed that
yeah,
deal. He's like, "Yeah, this is phenomenal. I'm gonna get
great.
10 million a year," and now
So
he's worth 4 times that on the open market. Yeah,
that's why it's never been a more important time to have strong leadership
yeah.
at the athletic department level, at the university level, and everybody getting along here because there are going to be some really tough conversations with coaching staffs, with staffing in general,
I will
because
say, and this is Pollard's strength, is that
it
organizational
is.
aspect. Like, that's
It
his
is.
number one strength as an athletic director.
And this isn't back to what you said. This isn't just an Iowa State issue. We're focused on Iowa State because we see it. There are programs that are in far worse shape from a debt standpoint
Oh yeah,
that have to
absolutely.
be going like, oh my gosh, what? How do we're gonna die here? And these
How many
SEC
times?
schools are gonna have they're even though they're getting all this TV money, they've also been very reckless in their debt spending too.
Yeah, and they are. It's so locked in. Like, all they care about down there is football. Like, we've seen it with basketball coaches, like, that they just leave because they like Mike. If I'm Kim Mulkey right now, like, I'm looking around. Okay, there's only 22 million for the entire athletic department.
Right.
How much of that do our fans want to go to football? Seriously, like, because I've heard what Kim Mulkey's spending on that roster, and I can promise you they ain't going to get that in this new world. There's no way.
Brian Kelly would not be pleased.
No, like, it's fascinating. Thanks to those who reached out after Sunday's pod.
Yeah.
We were not trying to do a
No, no,
doomsday.
no.
I hope people can appreciate this, that we're just thinking out loud here. And Bloom has a very unique insight to all this, and it just happens to be like what I'm most passionate about in this business is just the business of it and how it all works.
My my
So
my
we'll see.
10,000-foot view is this settlement and this change is going to be good for the long term of Iowa State's competitive standpoint. I really believe that. It's just going Iowa State is just going to have to get super aggressive, more so than even people are comfortable with in fundraising.
We have
Because you
thought we have thought that Armageddon was here for Iowa State like 4 times in
multiple
the last
times. Yeah,
15 years.
I'm not
So
this is not it. This is not that. The Big 12 again, it's somebody I had a really good conversation with somebody on Monday. Like, you're right. You guys are right. It's gonna be tough. However, as long as we can win the Big 12, and we're equal with our peers in the Big 12, we're not as concerned about those others. The concern comes from the coach standpoint and being able to keep your good people. Because if those programs are able to have more, pay more, etc., and they're gonna have more.
Is there a cap?
Too.
Is there going to be a cap on coaches?
I don't
at
think
all?
so. That's a fascinating question. No, it's
Like, I
it's
didn't
not.
know. I mean, there's not in like the NFL. They can pay their coaches
No,
whatever they want. It doesn't matter what their salary cap is.
Yeah, but I do think the contracts for those are going to have to change. They're going to have to get a lot more university friendly, and so these buyouts like A&M was signing it, and maybe A&M is just a monster and they don't care. But you're going to have some pretty substantial language in there to keep your coaches. I mean, everything's just going to get more restrictive. And Chris, the other part is these football staffs, maybe they don't have 10 to 15 more support staff that they've accumulated over the last 20 years. You're going to have to be more frugal in
that has
how
to
you
be
operate.
addressed.
Yeah.
And that's another reason, if you cut the scholarships down, you in theory don't need that many analysts and
it's less people. And so I just think that's why this is going to happen. It is inevitable. I think it's going to be good. It's just there's going to be some pain, some real pain. And it's scary. It's scary for people in the athletic department right now because how do you just
sucks.
find $30 million? Yeah.
I feel for them. I really do.
I am preparing for. I think I'll land somewhere again. Mechdyne, give me a call. But 3 years from now, I might not. I won't be doing this. I would guess 4 years from now. So yeah,
but you're gonna have a hell of an experience though.
It's good. Hey, let's go for a ride, everybody. But I think that's why I guess my message to Cyclone Nation fans is this is going to be okay. It really is. This is the time to continue to keep at it, invest in whatever way you can in NIL, in Iowa State, in going to the games, your season tickets, all of those things are going to help an athletic program that we know and love.
I want to thank a brand new sponsor here, and it's one that I'm using. I just started doing this a couple of weeks ago. I went to my friends at Game Day Men's Health in Ankeny.
Oh.
My buddy Bill owns a couple of these now in Ankeny and in West Des Moines. And let me tell you something. This is the best part of it. Free consultation and testosterone testing. That is correct. It is free. This is unlike pretty much anywhere else you can go. You get your first consultation and they'll run all your numbers and they'll do all your blood work and they will do it for free. I go up in Prairie Trail in Ankeny. This place is awesome, Blum. You walk in there and it looks like a man cave. They've got like all these like framed jerseys. I was talking to Bill. He was showing them to me. It's kind of old man stuff now because it's like John Elway. We got Jim Kelly. He was telling me like Warren Moon with the Oilers is the next one he really wants to get. There's a lot of guys out there where it's just you get to the point where you're like us and you are tired because you've got kids and you probably don't eat as well as you should because you're always on the go. You guys got to check out Game Day Men's Health. You're going to hear me talking about them a lot here on Cyclone Fanatic going forward. GameDayMen'sHealth.com. So there's 3 Iowa locations, Ankeny, West Des Moines, and in North Liberty. And I'll tell you about my journey and how I'm starting to feel better and all that good stuff. Also want to thank our friends at Gravitate Co-working. Got to get out of the office. Got to get out of your house. GravitateCoworking.com. You can check out all of their locations in the great state of Iowa. And my friend Hope Wood, I feel like every week I have somebody reaching out to me right now. Hey, I need to get Hope is advertised at the perfect time with us because now all these people are like entering their 40s and they're like, oh, I better get a will. You get a will done in the day, hopewoodjd.com. It's seriously incredible. She's one of the great advertising success stories we've had, the amount of people who have gotten their wills done with our friend Hope Wood. I've
always just thought this. Anybody who writes your estate plan, having Hope in their name is a good thing.
No, that's just true. I've had multiple Iowa State football coaches hear us talk about Hope, and they would text. I'm not kidding. Like she is. I bet she's done over 100 wills.
Does that have anything to do with the college athletics climate right now?
Oh, God.
It's stressful. It's stressful.
Well,
for
this is all my fault. I knew this was coming, but
Yeah.
remember, like 2 weeks ago, I was like, "Man, it's just really calm right now.
Yeah.
Nothing's going on."
Well,
Well,
and it won't get a lot of attention, but this is going to be it'll get attention. Don't get me wrong, but
this,
this
this
isn't.
is this is the time of this is the part where, and you could hear it in Heinrichs, and you're, I think, a little less blunt than Brad is, and everybody communicates differently, and this is the time of year. So like Pollard was like this a lot when he first got to Iowa State, where, okay, you guys want to bitch about how bad our football team is, but you don't sign up for the Cyclone Club. You don't buy tickets. Like, we can't get better if we're underfunded. And I think an issue is that was the message for so long. And then it's like more, right? And and this is where I give you guys a lot of credit, because I think like some people simply can't pay more.
Absolutely.
They just can't. So you can buy a 6-pack of Ames Lager. You can buy one of your pizzas. You can go to the George Strait concert, right? Like, that's
Lager
supporting
there.
Iowa State athletics.
Hey,
And
we will jerky now. I don't know if you saw that.
man, you got everything.
WeWillJerky.com.
You're gonna get like cereal next. What are we got coming next?
I do have a meeting later today. I'll tell you about later.
Oh, God. All right, meet in the driveway. Turtles have got to go we got a road trip to Colfax tonight.
Look out.
First road trip of the year for the Turtles. I was so proud of my daughter last night. God's honest truth. This is how it goes down. So I'm working with some girls in the cage. This is right before you and Crystal and the boys walk by. All this happened, okay? So we're out at the ball fields.
Yeah.
Ball fields in Bondu last night, and we're practicing. We didn't have a game. And I have like 5 or 6 girls over in the cage, and then the other coaches are like doing some scrimmage type stuff, working with the girls on the field. And Cameron, who's 9, and she has no meat on her bones at all, she took a foul ball off of her wrist. So like the thumb bone, right where the thumb meets the wrist.
Sensitive. Yeah.
Takes a foul ball off of it. And she didn't cry, but you could tell it really hurt her. Okay? Like, it hurt. That hurts. If anybody's had that, it hurts. It really doesn't even matter how hard the ball is. This is a bad spot to get hit. She gets done, and she comes over because she's up in the cage next with me, and I'm like, "Are you okay?" Because I could tell like her eyes are welling up a little bit, and I'm like, "Are you okay?" She goes, "Yeah, I'm fine." She's shaking it off, and she goes, "I'm good." And then I look over there again, and she's like ghost white. I go, "Are you okay?" This is like 3 minutes later. And she's like, "Yeah, my wrist feels fine, but like," she goes, "it hurts, but I'm really hot all of a sudden." And then she just pukes.
Oh, no.
It was like a pain response from the foul ball. It just made her puke. That happens to people when something hurts, right? You just puke. Kid, I run over, get some paper towels, wipes it off, gets her ass back in the cage, and finished practice.
Look at that.
I was super proud of her.
Yeah.
Finished practice.
It's like Willis Reed stuff.
She finished practice with puke all over her.
LeBron would have been in the ER, man.
And she is at school. Yeah, soft LeBron. She is at school today. She's not sick. It was legit like from the foul ball.
Get it out of there. Get that.
I mean, I rolled. That happened to me once. I rolled an ankle when I was
I've never heard of throwing up due to pain. Maybe I'm.
Oh, seriously? It happens to a
Yeah.
lot of people.
Okay.
Yeah. No, that's like a real thing. I was super proud of her.
Yeah.
So-
good. Hey, good luck tonight. Beautiful day for it.
Got to go to Colfax. Nice people over in Colfax Mingo. Good partners of the Bondurant Little League.
You can't think of Colfax without Mingo.
Yeah. We're not going to Jacqueline Cordova's a Mingo. Oh wait, no, she was Colfax.
She's Colfax.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. So what? Again, guys, we're gonna get to all these mailbag questions. We were gonna do it today, and then it feels like now we're in that phase where like there's gonna be some off-season story. I think the next, like you said, 14 to days to 3 weeks will be somewhat interesting here. And then
if you like
this stuff,
court cases, and it's not going to be, there's not a whole lot of now it's on the on-field side, schedules are starting to come out for TV. I would say it's going to get its TV schedules for the first couple of games here in the next couple of weeks.
Well, that's good.
Hey, so on that note, not that It matters. What's the perfect game time? North
2:30.
Dakota.
3.
North Dakota, because I'm going to guess the North Dakota game is on
I like
ESPN,
1.
ESPN
Selfishly.
Plus. When would you put the first game?
1 o'clock.
I think I like 1 o'clock as well, especially if it's not national TV. Doesn't matter because you're on ESPN. Well, they might still schedule it.
You got to realize I'm coming at it from a very selfish standpoint.
Don't we all?
Yeah, but how can I get done
Although
with my work? And
1 o'clock on August, what is that going to be, 29th, is going to be hot.
Yeah, it may be the night game. I feel like the night games have worn Iowa State fans out because there's so many of them now.
Well, and then this threat of severe weather at night that.
Yeah, I don't want anything to do with that anymore.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you.
That South Dakota State game,
I'm
did
out.
me in.
I still have.
And then the Iowa game, like a couple weeks later, it was the same way. Like it was the next year. The Iowa game.
It was technically 3 years later, but
no,
it was the next year. It was the next year. You're right.
They all run together.
I don't think Iowa State won either way.
I mean, if it's a televised game, 2:30 is the way to go.
I agree with that.
2:30.
I agree with that.
I would always sign up for 11, but I know the fans hate that. Like, I personally think that the 11 o'clock games are awesome because then you can get home and watch the night games and all that stuff. But I also realize that a lot of kids have soccer and, it really
that's the thing is you got
hurts the tailgating. And then if you lose, it's like nobody wants to tailgate after the game if you lose, right? So I'm hope. My guess is that Pollard will pull the trigger on that 1 o'clock kick, and I also think, knowing the head coach pretty well, he does not like waiting around on the night games.
No,
Matt would pick a day game over a night game any day, right?
Absolutely.
That's why we have all these stupid Sunday afternoon games for basketball. It's the coach.
TJ likes the early games.
Yeah. Because they're an early program, like they do all their practicing at 6 a.m. Like
is he a big Sunday night football guy or something, or what's the deal?
No, I truly think that. I mean, he likes keeping the guys on their. That was why I was terrified about that Illinois game. Like they were tipping off at midnight.
It was late.
Like,
that is late for
totally off of their clock. Yeah. Now, granted, knowing that ahead of time, you practice later and you do all that stuff. But I'm saying, if you're Iowa State and you practice every day at 6 o'clock in the morning, and let's be honest, when Grambling comes in Florida, it's basically a glorified practice anyways. If you play the game early, then you've had recovery time and then you can practice again on Monday, right?
Yeah. No,
you've traveled with Matt in football.
Oh,
they despise night games.
They hate night games. You're sitting there. It's a long day in a hotel room. It's very boring. Very boring. Those guys are just watching. They're just watching games too. I mean, that's why.
The players can. They don't know. Like it's hard because it's like, when do I eat?
When you eat, yep.
When
Remember
should I take a nap?
The K-State game last year, and then the catering doesn't show up. And you got Tyson Veit making omelets. Shout out Tyson Veit. Miss you, buddy. Good guy.
Tyson Veit, one of my top 5 favorite assistant coaches in Iowa State history.
Good dude. But yeah, so interesting times. I guess my long view here is this is going to ultimately be a really good thing for Iowa State. There needs to be caps, regulations in place. It's just this is not the time to not invest. I'm talking to you old school Ames town people in regards to Sci-Town and everything else. Iowa State literally needs to find $25 to $30 million it didn't have. Guess what? Sci-Town could be a great way to do that. I don't know all the mechanics of how that revenue works. Even as the school transitions to compensating players, which will happen in the next couple of years, your investment as a fan, unfortunately or fortunately, is not going to diminish. It's going to be as important as ever. And I think that's my main takeaway here.
Real quick, just a breaking sports business story. Doesn't have anything to do with Iowa State. Netflix just announced that it's going to host all of the NFL's Christmas Day games this year.
Holy cow.
That's a huge story. And if you listen to the show, going back to the inception of it,
Remember when Stu Mandel said Netflix would never do?
Yeah. Remember when Stuart Mandel told us we were idiots?
Stu.
Oh, Amazon's not going to do this.
Hey,
oh yeah,
can you guys?
I just watched Amazon do that whole NASCAR thing yesterday. They brought Dale Jr. to Times Square and because they just bought that package and.
Hey, can you guys do us a favor? Can you tag Stu a couple times and then ask for the thank you for old time's sake? Just a blast from the past.
I just want to know if he likes the bourbon. That's
Did he
all
like
I
the
care.
Cody Road or not?
I don't know. He never told me.
We haven't heard from Stu.
I've talked to Stu. Me and him have a good working relationship. I know a lot of these guys. So a little bit behind the story, a lot of and this is why local media hates national media for the most part, because these national media guys rely on us to get their information, and then they'll do a story, and then these athletic departments are like, "Oh my God, Jeff Goodman just tweeted about us." Well, they're because they're getting the information from us. You don't do that when we write a good story. It's so annoying. So I talk to Stu a lot. He's a pretty good guy. It's just he has never said, "Hey, I really enjoyed that bottle of bourbon you sent me."
And also, he's been wrong for 6 years in a row now.
He's had a rough streak when it comes to this.
Been a rough 6 years.
Stuff. I think, and I don't know, but I think he's got sources in Legacy TV that were probably
trying to
in
hang
denial.
on for dear life. And
I think they were. Yeah, I think his wheelhouse was probably in denial of where this was all actually heading, and he probably got bad info.
So interesting. I think this is a good thing for Iowa State, because the more those streamers, those tech companies can get involved in sports, you just got to break up the Fox ESPN monopoly.
Absolutely.
It's just what it is in college athletics.
Disney had terrible earnings last week.
Yeah, and I think that's a long-term play, because Iowa State's, what is that contract with the TV now through
2036,
31, 36, something.
Oh, wait, no, it's not 36. It's 31. You're right, it's 31.
So, but the other part here, again, getting totally in the weeds, this college football playoff got some topic in that the Big 12s and the ACC are going to be less than the SEC and the Big 10. However, there is what's called a look-in provision, where that could change if these teams are successful and other TV negotiations happen. So I do think the more the tech companies can get involved, I would like to know like to ask some questions of why the tech companies weren't involved in the college football playoff this last go around. It seems weird that ESPN got it all, but anyway, that didn't help matters. So anyway, that's good. That's a good thing that those monsters are in sports right now.
It's because they've never mobilized, Brent, and once this is I don't know. That's a whole other podcast, but it's just another. It's another example of the leaders of college athletics not being on the same page and screwing themselves in the process.
This is where you need more strong leadership now more than ever from a school standpoint, because it's going to get real rocky, everybody. But this is my ending note. I've never been more optimistic. I really did. Yesterday's news, the Dellinger thing, made me very excited, because I do think there's a pathway forward for Iowa State to be as successful as it has been the last couple of years, and maybe even more so relative to its peers. Are you ever going to catch the SEC and the Big Ten in money? No, but somebody has to lose in those leagues. And there's no reason why Iowa State can't win the Big 12 going forward. And if you do that, it's going to be good times.
He is Brent Blum. My name is Chris Williams. We are always presented by our friends at Mechdyne. Aiden Wyatt produced this bad boy for us today. We will be back on Sunday night. We do have our first podcast episode of the podcast series on with our friends at the Ivy College of Business. Jacqueline Cordova and I yesterday sat down for about an hour on how Cyclone Fanatics started. How did it become what it is today? With some inside stories there. I think you guys will enjoy it, and you'll have it for your weekend listening. For Brent Blum, my name is Chris Williams, signing off here today on your Wednesday. Have an awesome rest of your work week, Cyclone Nation.